I'm Benjamin Etkin. I've taught full-time at American River College for 18 years. You may have seen me at the bus stop across the street waiting for the 82 bus, or when I received the 2011 DSPNS Instructor of the Year Award. Just like my algebra sequence, I'm using entirely open source resources, from the text and workbook to MyOpenMath. MyOpenMath is free to all students in Los Rios because of the number of courses that we've created for it.
In addition to being free, here's a little bit more information about MyOpenMath. It was designed and created entirely by mathematics professors like myself. It allows questions to be graded instantly, it allows for repetition, and it allows for mastery. Questions are set to allow 3 attempts to enter the answer for each individual version of a question. So that allows students to make up for the fact that the computer is looking for the answer in the correct way. In addition, for homework assignments, students can see new versions of each of the questions. That is, they're algorithmically generated. There's code written that creates each of those questions. Each question is coded to create a new situation in which the same skills are needed. Now, taken together, this allows for asynchronous online courses to be individualized for mastery. And that's true because there are so many settings available. That includes dates and time limits, thresholds to open assignments, that is, how well you have to do in a previous assignment to get into the next, multiple attempts and multiple versions. It will select the best score from among several assessments. So for example, the final and the pre-final, it'll select the best of those two. It allows for extensions. Students can invoke late passes on their own. It allows for conditions to be set for revisions and for makeups. Being that it was created by math professors, one of the things that we really wanted is that the notation had to be correct. Math is a language, and that means that everything has to be shown correctly. And that includes mathematical tables and graphs. Now let's look at what some of my students have said about this. This class made statistics very relatable, and I felt my grade outcome was higher than I would have expected even in an in-class setting. And I think when you consider the way that the course is created to take advantage of being online, asynchronous, and having all of the power of MyOpenMath, you can understand what she's saying. Also, your online teaching program has been wonderful. The course itself is composed of a text, workbook, online lessons, homework, and then exams. Of course, those initial looks, the text, the workbook, the online lessons that I've created, the homework and projects, are where the students spend the majority of their time. And I think key in this is that there is a perfect alignment of the text with the workbook, the online lessons, the videos that I've created, the practice, and then the homework, the exams. And then of course when the midterms come, there's 2, one in the middle and one before the final. Those are perfectly aligned as well. They're taken from the same homework sets. The same for the final. There is over 60 graded assignments. Now that's a lot. That's chapter exams, that's homework, that's workbook quizzes, it's the midterms and the final attempts, and of course those projects. And there are literally thousands of individual questions, many of which I've coded myself, to ensure both depth and breadth of the concepts. Together, the homework and exams ensure that the coverage is rigorous. It's very important to me. Stats is easy, almost insanely easy to take advantage of, to be misled by. So it's very important that those rigorous aspects, the mechanical skill building aspects of the course, is highlighted. There's also projects that ensure that there is a conceptual aspect and that we're looking into how to reason statistically. And finally, there's, together, many ways for students to get support. So there's the text, the workbook, online lessons, there's practices, there's forums where students can interact with each other, and that also allows me to answer questions not just for one student but for everyone. Students can look at the forums just to see what other students have asked. I make a point of getting tutors, and of course I provide support in whatever way, through whatever means students feel they are getting the most out of. I feel like your class was much, much more about learning than about chasing a grade. I thought MyOpenMath was smart, the instant grading and due dates were great, and your communication was spectacular. I want to let you know how grateful I am for your class and your way of teaching. You were very understanding and set up the class in a way that really helped me understand and practice each concept.
I've adopted an individualized mastery model made possible by teaching asynchronously and online. My student success has soared. This isn't surprising because students can get ahead or catch up. Before they take a chapter exam, they will have completed their workbook using my videos and mastered their homework.
This course is designed to be multifaceted. The material never goes away. We just look at it from a different point of view. Now, that means that students need to have an individualized experience. And that means that the pace, the opportunity for revising their work or for making it up entirely has to be available. All told, the individualized aspect of this course means that there can be many paths to success, and that's a key way that I have created this course. It really is designed to accommodate our students' lives. A lot goes on. They've got work, they've got illnesses, they've got other obligations outside of class, and their schedules change. One of the key parts of this is that there is mandatory preparation that ensures that their skills are present before they can progress. That's what would be called a mastery model, and could also be considered the key to ensuring that students get what they need before they're asked to demonstrate what they've learned. So each facet, each different look at this, from the workbook quiz and practices to the homework and chapter exams, looks at the same topic just through a different lens. So different versions of the questions, but successively fewer versions of those questions and shorter time limits is really what characterizes that progression. From the student's point of view, this course is designed to reduce the anxiety that surrounds taking a math course, a statistics course in this case, by ensuring two things. First, that each assignment builds on the previous. And what that means is it's simply a different look, another facet of those same questions, of those same topics, different iterations of them. And that the student always has a path to revision if necessary, or even to replace an assignment if needed. So for example, this class was great. Lots of hard work, but manageable and very clear of what was expected. The videos were clear and easy to follow as well, which was appreciated for an asynchronous class. You were a great professor. I was so nervous to take your class. I haven't taken an asynchronous class, but I think it is the reason I was able to get the percentage I did. I have 3 small children, and so it was great to stop when I needed and pick up when convenient. And most importantly, while working on all the practices, I was able to go back to the lecture to get clarification. Also, while watching the videos, it was nice to be able to stop and be sure I was recreating what you were doing on your calculator.
Hi, I'd like to share my extraordinary success teaching statistics using an individualized mastery model and entirely open source resources.
So I've taken a detailed look at the success for my students. So initially, let's look at those students who have not passed an algebra course in high school or college. That is the AB 705 folks. And you can see there's some trends here. It looks like the retention rate's increasing, the average grades staying about the same, and the pass rate a little bit variable there. I took these 3 rates and I took their geometric mean, and you can see that it's indicative of the 3 ways of looking at success. So right now a little bit above 70. For students who passed algebra, either in high school or college, here are the success numbers for them. So the average grade increasing slightly, the pass rate staying about the same, and retention increasing fairly dramatically. So their aggregate success, again, the geometric mean of these three rates, that is their product and then the cube root taken of that, gives us the average or the mean of their success, so increasing fairly dramatically. Now there's a lot of reasons to adopt open source. For me, the goals are far beyond the textbook costs, but it is good to note that textbook costs have increased more than many other categories of consumer spending in the last decade. In fact, over 200% compared with televisions that have fallen in price pretty dramatically. Another way to look at this is, what are the financial barriers to getting an education? And even though textbook costs have been increasing fairly dramatically, it's still the case that a car is the most expensive item in a student's budget. So getting to school is important. So it's good to remember that 250,000 rides were taken at American River College in 2018, the last time we've got data from regional transit. So I've looked at the past here, 1983, and then a potential future that I'm hoping we can see relatively soon as well. So 1983, take a look at ARC. ARC is exactly where you'd expect, in kind of the center of northeastern Sacramento. I've highlighted all the routes here at that time that served ARC. So you can see there's 3 routes that went out to Sunrise Mall, up to Roseville, Hillsdale, North Highlands. 3 routes went downtown. 1 was an express bus. And every route, including those into Davis, was 1 connection away. So the network was far better connected. You could get to CSUS in 2 different ways on 2 different bus routes. And we had a bus exchange on campus. So 1983 is certainly a time to remember, when transit service was significantly better here at American River College. Didn't have to cross the street, brave traffic, or wait at a stop in the blazing sun or in the rain to get on a number 1 to light rail. So where could we go? Well, I think it's important to remember that the state and the federal government are supporting bus rapid transit, and that really is an opportunity to bring better transit to ARC. In fact, as an extension of light rail and with platform connections, instead of going upstairs in an elevator, we could have bus rapid transit that then branched out and also served a mall. Every bus route on this proposal for the future, on the right side here, serves a college and a mall. So plenty of opportunities for connections at places with restrooms and shelters and phones. But also bringing the network together. Notice that North Highlands, notice that Citrus Heights, Fair Oaks are all accessible from American River College in this proposal. So increase in bus hours, not significantly so compared with the price of automobiles or parking garages or light rail, something that I hope that we see in the future. In the meantime, online instruction is a great way to reduce our students' expenses by being able to get them an education where they are and where they need to be to help out with their other obligations. Now, my goal is to close the aspiration gap. And if you haven't heard this phrase, this is a huge issue for folks in math and science. It's a huge issue because it's very easy to say, well, a student really has no ambition in the math area or science or technology or engineering. And so, it's not really our concern. But I do think it's our concern, and I think there's ways that we can address this. One of the ways that I use is documentaries. There's excellent mathematics documentaries out there, and if you've got time, I recommend that you watch them yourselves. So Hannah Fry has, I think, some of the absolute best documentaries out there. They're all free and freely available. The Joy of Data is about statistics. Contagion is about the spread of diseases. It was made before the COVID-19 pandemic. The Joy of Winning is about game theory. And Magic Numbers is a history of mathematics with a fairly philosophical bent. Marcus de Satoy has some excellent documentaries for the lower level. The Story of Maths is perfect for an algebra class, the code as well, and then algorithm, perhaps folks going into computer science. In a stats class, one of the things I'm sure to use is prediction by the numbers from Nova. I would love to see the cost of a textbook. If you're talking about $200, that could easily get you a field trip or two. Lawrence Berkeley Labs has free tours if you can get to Berkeley BART Station. Exploratorium is one of the best science museums in the world, and on a motor coach it's $25 away. Cal Academy, the same way. I've had classroom visits, so engineering professors, chemistry professors, just coming to show that there is other options for using math besides math itself. Thank you for always being so encouraging and helpful this semester. I haven't always been the greatest math student, but I've become a stronger student in math because of your stats class. I would like to take more math courses, and I will look into the Hannah Fry documentaries you mentioned. Thank you again for a wonderful semester. I could not say thank you enough. It truly feels great to have someone rooting for you in your corner. It makes so much of a difference. I work in education for elementary, and you have inspired me and helped me grow so much. I have never been a fan of math, but statistics was a lot of fun and by far my favorite class this semester. And hopefully those are examples of students who would consider going on in mathematics or encouraging other folks to do that. This is a very detailed look at how the course is arranged. First, there's online lessons for each section. They follow along with the instruction with the workbook. So I'm looking at the workbook, they're looking at the workbook. I've got their calculator up on the screen and we're working together. There's then workbook quizzes. There's one for each chapter. There's approximately 5 questions. There's one version and one attempt and a 10-minute deadline. It requires 100% to open the homework. If they fail that quiz, they can get a scan of the completed workbook, or I can reset that workbook quiz if there was a technology issue. The practice is ungraded, so its default weight is 0%. There's 11, one for each chapter. 40 questions, they're ungraded. Tons of attempts, 3 attempts for 99 versions. And that same 2-week deadline. The attendance assignments or homework, one for each chapter, approximately 40 questions, very much like the practice, but allows a late pass and only allows 3 versions. When students have got that up to 80%, that'll open the chapter exams. Now, if that doesn't happen, they can complete the practice assignment with 90%, and then I'll reset the attendance assignment. That also provides a little incentive not to get into that situation, but it also provides some telescoping reteaching for those folks who do get into that situation. The chapter exams, there's 11 of those. There's 5 questions drawn from that same set of 40. It allows late passes again, so the students can set their own pace without even talking to me. Of course, they can do that as well. It has 1 version and 3 attempts per question. There's a deadline and an hour and a half time limit. If they miss or fail a chapter exam and they're passing, they can bring their practice assignment up to 90 and then go back through. If they're not passing, then they get that extended and reset for the attendance and the practice. And I'm also dropping their lowest 2 chapter exams. So the midterm exam practice, about 50 questions, that has a default weight of 0%, so it doesn't count towards or against them, but it means that their midterm scores are very impressive. There's 2 of those midterms, 10 questions drawn from 100, and again, like a chapter exam, 1 version and 3 attempts, and a 3-hour time limit within that 2-week window. So they get to choose when they do it, as long as it's within that 2-week period. The final review homework, again, a weight of 0%, entirely optional in that sense. And then 2 finals. The pre-final, 20 questions drawn from 70. It has 1 version and 3 attempts, just like an exam. It has a 4-hour time limit and a 2-week open window. Now, if they're happy with their score on the pre-final, they can keep it. Otherwise, they get the better of the 2. If they want to bring up their score, they can take the final as well. The final doesn't have a final review homework prerequisite, and it has 15 questions instead of 20, but instead of the 4-hour time limit, it's closer to our 2-hour in-class time limit with 3 hours. And then, of course, the student earns the better of the two final scores. And I highlight the two final scores because I think that shows the power of what's capable with MyOpenMath. Students are allowed to use the late passes themselves. I begin the semester with everyone having 4. If one student asks for more late passes, I'll give everyone late passes at the end of the semester. There's always students who've been strategically using their late passes and always students who haven't used them at all. There's many students who get ahead. I always have a student who's done by the first month of the semester. Late passes give them 72 hours and can be used on homework or chapter exams. The conceptual applications are from the online lessons. So this is to allow students to follow along with the projects in the workbook and then the project quizzes. So those are very similar to the projects in the workbook, with the difference being that they work on those projects after the challenges themselves. And finally, a quick look at the projects themselves. So there's a random tosses question. Just what does it mean to actually be random? It's very different from what many people expect who haven't actually looked at what a random sequence of coin tosses looks like. Then we look at the difference between an arithmetic and a geometric mean. Remember, I used the geometric mean to aggregate that data for the student success. We look at the very beginning of statistics with the question that Blaise Pascal asked, how do you determine who's most likely to win an unfinished game? We look at that classic example of statistics. Let's make a deal. Should you stay or should you switch? We then return to probability and ask, what's the probability that a class will have 2 people, or at least 2 people, who share a birthday? We then do some fairly high-level combinatorics, at least in terms of asking our calculators to look at probabilities using counting. So a more classical look at probability. And then we end the semester with background rates. The idea that you already know a lot of information and you can use Bayesian statistics to change your point of view and to simply change those background rates. One of my students says, I really liked your class and enjoyed the videos and the projects that were fun and relevant for daily life. I also have 2 written responses. Sally Clark's murder conviction was a classic of misrepresentation of statistics, and I asked my students to read about it and then have a written response. And then a fascinating question about the probability of having 2 boys among 2 births, and then how that changes when you are told that one of the children is a boy, or if you're told that one of the child's name is Ben.
Last summer, I added an applications component to ensure that their grades demonstrate not only procedural, but also conceptual understanding. I'd love the course to continue to reach our students and ensure that they can go on.